Hello, Phil Hood here, former publisher of Drum Magazine, former publisher of Drums and Drumming Magazine for that matter, and I've got a story for you about the great Max Roach. This story goes back to about 1989 or 90 when Drums and Drumming did a cover story with Max Roach. We later did one with Traps Magazine too, some of you may remember. But at this time, the story was ready, but the editors wanted some more information about it, and somehow it fell to me to get in touch with Max and fill in the gaps in the story. So I called, and management got back to me, and we got on the phone with Max Roach. We got all the information that was missing, so the story was in good shape, and then Max was in a mood to talk, so we just kept talking, even though I knew we had enough material for the story. And I began asking him about the life of being a bebopper, and particularly what it was like with the Brown Roach Quintet in the mid-50s, probably 53 to 56. This was a band that was considered possibly the greatest bebop group of all time. It was led by Clifford Brown, the trumpet, and Max Roach, the drummer, and they were great composers as well as musicians. And in those days, I was really interested in the life they lived. They would travel city to city by train. You would usually stay in a city for 7 days. You would play a nightclub or a hotel nightclub, a hotel ballroom, 7 days a week, 2 or 3 shows a night. And Max began telling me stories, and one of them took place in St. Louis during a week that they stayed at the Hotel Diplomat and played there. They would come into a hotel on a Sunday and stay all week. So the next day, Monday, they had a rehearsal. And rehearsals would happen in the afternoon, and particularly with this, with a jazz group that knew its material as well as this one, the rehearsal was about new material frequently. And some local musicians would sometimes show up just to listen to sound check, because these were musicians that were heroes to all the local young cats. And in the audience in St. Louis was a young guy named Oliver Nelson. Oliver would have been like 19 or 20, something like that at this time. He was a saxophonist, later became famous for, among other things, an album called The Blues and the Abstract Truth, which really made a big impression on the jazz world, I think, in 1961, because of he had a large group. He had Roy Haynes on drums and Paul Chambers on bass and a lot of other amazing musicians. And he was obviously a composer, a serious composer. And during that, after that album, and during the 60s and 70s, Oliver worked all the time as a film and TV composer, did a lot of episodes, a lot of soundtracks. And so he's highly respected, but this was when he was just starting out, and he wanted to hear Clifford Brown and Max Roach in the band in person. And so Max is telling me the story, and he's imitating the voices of these people. On the very first day that they're rehearsing, Oliver Nelson came up to Clifford Brown. He said, Mr. Brown, I'm a saxophonist, and I'm also a composer, and I would love to show you some of my music. In fact, I would love for the Brown Roach Quintet to play my music. And so Clifford showed some interest, or he was just being kind, but he wanted to. And so Oliver gives him a sheaf of music, and it's very dense, very dense notation. And if you know the Blues and the Abstract Truth, you're not surprised that this was challenging music. And Clifford said, we'll try it later in the week. So every day Oliver Nelson shows up for rehearsal. He wants to hear Clifford Brown play his music. And every day Clifford Brown decides not to play the music. So he puts up with this for 4 or 5 days, And all the while Max is telling me this, he's telling me about Clifford, and Clifford had kind of a deep, gruff voice, and telling him about Oliver showing up every day. So finally Oliver comes to him one day and says, Mr. Brown, I've been here all week. You've had my music all week, and I haven't heard you play my song yet. And Brownie, that's what they called him, looks at Oliver and he says, kid, I could write some fucking difficult shit you couldn't play neither. So that's my story about Max Roach and the Brown Roach Quintet. I like it, and I'm sticking to it.